I counted the bills again in the flickering light of my bathroom, my hands shaking as I separated 20s from 10s from 5s. 3 months of double shifts. 3 months of skipped meals and walking to work in the rain to save bus fare. 3 months closer to disappearing. The bruise on my ribs throbbed as I reached up to hide the envelope behind the loose ceiling tile. Fresh. 2 days old. Purple spreading into yellow at the edges. A watercolor of pain I'd learned to catalog with clinical detachment. This one had been because I'd forgotten to pick up his prescription. Or maybe because I'd remembered but hadn't smiled enough when I handed it to him. With Derek, the reason didn't matter anymore. The pattern was what mattered. The escalation. I needed 5,000 total. Enough for a bus ticket to somewhere he'd never think to look. First, and last month's rent under a name that wasn't mine. A cushion to survive on while I found work. I was so close I could taste freedom like copper on my tongue. The apartment was silent except for the drip of the kitchen faucet I couldn't afford to fix. Derek wouldn't be back until late. He never was on Thursdays. Thursday was poker night with his buddies, which meant I had exactly 4 hours of peace before I needed to have dinner ready and my face arranged into the right expression. Not too happy. Not too sad. Just blank enough to avoid triggering whatever darkness lived inside him. I pressed my palm against the cool mirror, meeting my own eyes. 26 years old and I looked 40. When had the light gone out? When had I become this hollow thing that moved through days like a ghost? Soon I promised my reflection. Just a few more weeks. The Bluebird diner smelled like it always did. Burnt coffee, bacon grease, and industrial cleaner that never quite masked the underlying scent of decades-old cooking oil. I tied my apron with practiced efficiency, forcing my face into the pleasant mask I wore for customers. "You're moving slow today, sweetheart," called Frank from the kitchen, his weathered face creasing with concern. He'd worked the grill for 30 years and had seen everything, including, I suspected, the careful way I held my left side when I thought no one was watching. "Just tired," I lied, the words automatic. "Didn't sleep well?" He studied me a moment too long, then turned back to his griddle. Frank was good people. They all were here. Donna the owner, Marie who worked nights, even Tommy the dishwasher who was saving up for culinary school. But good people couldn't help me. Good people called the police, and the police took reports that went nowhere while Derek smiled his charming smile and explained how clumsy his girlfriend was. The lunch rush started at noon. I moved through it like I'd moved through 1,000 shifts before. Coffee refills, orders taken, plates delivered, forced smiles until my cheeks ached. The tips were good today. $73 by 2 o'clock. $73 closer. That's when the black SUV pulled up outside. I noticed it because you don't see vehicles like that in our neighborhood. Too expensive. Too clean. The windows were tinted dark enough to be illegal, and it idled at the curb like a predator deciding whether to strike. "Probably lost," Marie muttered, refilling the napkin dispensers. "GPS sends people down here by mistake all the time." But the SUV didn't leave. And 5 minutes later, the door to the Bluebird opened. He walked in like he owned not just the diner, but the entire city block. Maybe 6'2", built like he knew his way around a gym, but hadn't let it make him bulky. The suit probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a black shirt underneath that made him look like he was dressed for a funeral. Or a hit. Behind him, 2 men entered. They weren't as polished, but they moved with the same predatory awareness, scanning the diner with eyes that cataloged exits and threats in seconds. The room went quiet. Even Frank stopped his humming. The man in the suit chose a booth by the window, sliding in with fluid grace while his companions took up positions. One by the door, one near the counter, protecting his back, watching. My heart hammered against my bruised ribs as I grabbed a menu and approached their table. This was wrong. Everything about this screamed wrong. Men like this didn't come to places like the Bluebird unless they were looking for someone. Unless they were looking for me. Had Derek sent them? No. Derek didn't have money for men in $1,000 suits. Derek's threats came with his own fists and beer-sour breath. "Welcome to the Bluebird," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Can I start you with coffee?" He looked up, and I stopped breathing. Eyes like storm clouds, gray with flecks of silver that caught the afternoon light streaming through the window. A face that could have been carved from marble, all sharp angles and controlled intensity. A small scar bisected his left eyebrow, the only imperfection in otherwise devastating features. But it was the way he looked at me that made the world tilt sideways. Not through me, like most customers did. Not past me to someone more interesting. At me. Like he could see every secret I'd buried, every bruise I'd hidden, every desperate plan I'd counted out in crumpled bills. "Coffee," he said, his voice a low rumble that I felt in my chest. "Black." I turned to leave, desperate to escape that knowing gaze, but his next words froze me in place. "How much do you need?" My hand tightened on the menu until my knuckles went white. "I'm sorry?" To leave him. He leaned back in the booth, utterly calm, utterly certain. "How much money do you need to disappear?" The diner had gone completely silent. I could feel Frank's eyes on us, feel Marie's sharp intake of breath, could feel the weight of this stranger's attention like a physical thing pressing against my skin. "I don't know what you're talking about," I whispered. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those gray eyes. Not pity, something darker. "You're holding your left side, cracked or bruised ribs, judging by how shallow your breathing is. The concealer on your jaw isn't quite the right shade. I can see the edge of a bruise. You've been working doubles for 3 months straight, according to the schedule on the wall. Saving. Planning." My blood turned to ice. "How do you... and you're afraid?" He leaned forward now, his voice dropping lower. "Not of me. You haven't even looked at the exit since I walked in. You're afraid of who might be waiting for you when you leave." I couldn't move, couldn't think. This stranger had just dismantled my entire existence in 30 seconds. "Who are you?" I managed. "Someone who can help." He pulled out a phone, did something with the screen, then turned it to face me. "That's your boyfriend, Derek Mitchell. He works construction, drinks too much, has a temper that's landed him in county lockup twice for assault. Neither time involved you, though it should have." The photo on the screen was definitely Derek, recent, high resolution, taken without his knowledge based on the angle. "You've been following me." The words came out flat. "Numb. Following him," he corrected. "You just happened to be part of the picture." He pocketed the phone. "Vincenzo Marchesi. I own several businesses in this city, including, as of this morning, the building your boyfriend's construction company is currently working on." The name meant nothing to me, but the way Frank had gone pale in the kitchen window told me it should have. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "Why would you—" "Because men like Derek Mitchell are a disease." Something cold and lethal crept into Vincenzo Marchesi's voice. "And I have very particular feelings about men who put their hands on women." He slid a business card across the table. "Cream-colored, expensive stock, with nothing but a phone number embossed in black. Your shift ends at 6. Don't go home. Call that number, and my people will pick you up." His gray eyes held mine. "Or ignore it. Go back to your apartment, and keep counting money you'll never save fast enough. Your choice." "I don't..." My voice cracked. "I don't understand what you want from me." Vincenzo Marchesi's smile was all edges. "I want to handle this. Let me." Before I could respond, before I could process any of what was happening, the door burst open. Derek stood there, swaying slightly, his face flushed with rage and day drinking. His eyes locked on me first, then traveled to the man in the booth. "The fuck is this?" Derek's voice carried across the diner. "You cheating on me, Lily? With this asshole?" Everything slowed down. I saw Frank reaching for the phone behind the counter, saw Marie backing toward the kitchen, saw the two men who'd come with Vincenzo move with liquid precision to flank their boss. But Vincenzo himself didn't move, didn't even look at Derek. He kept his eyes on me, and in them, I saw a question. Do you want me to end this? Derek was stalking toward us now, his hands curled into fists I knew too well. I asked you a fucking question. My ribs throbbed, my jaw ached. $3,417 wouldn't be enough. It would never be enough. Derek would find me wherever I ran, unless someone stopped him. I looked at Vincenzo Marchesi, this stranger with storm-gray eyes and a scar through his eyebrow and the kind of power that made men nervous just by walking into a room. Handle it, I whispered. And Vincenzo smiled. Derek's hand was reaching for my arm when Vincenzo stood. He didn't rush, didn't shout, just rose from the booth with the unhurried confidence of a man who'd never had to fight for dominance. It simply existed around him like a force field. You must be Derek. Vincenzo's voice was conversational, almost pleasant. I've heard a lot about you. Derek's momentum faltered. Up close, the difference between them was stark. Derek was all chaotic energy and beer-gut aggression, his construction-worn clothes and unshaven face a stark contrast to Vincenzo's tailored perfection. But it was more than appearance. It was the way Vincenzo occupied space, claiming it, owning it, making everything else fade to background noise. Who the fuck are you? Derek demanded, but I heard the uncertainty creeping into his voice. Bullies knew when they'd met something bigger. I'm the person who's going to explain how this works. Vincenzo buttoned his suit jacket with deliberate precision. Lily no longer belongs to you. She never did. But you were too stupid to understand the difference between possession and partnership. That ends today. Derek's face flushed deeper red. You can't just... She's mine. She's not. The words were soft, but they carried the weight of absolute finality. And if you touch her again, if you even look at her again, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your considerably shortened life regretting it. The two men who'd accompanied Vincenzo shifted almost imperceptibly. Not threatening, exactly. Just present. Waiting. Derek must have been drunker than I thought because he actually laughed. You threatening me? You know who I... Vincenzo moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was standing 3 feet away. The next his hand was wrapped around Derek's throat, slamming him back against the nearest wall. The impact rattled picture frames. Derek's feet left the floor by inches. I know exactly who you are. Vincenzo's voice never rose above that same conversational tone. Derek William Mitchell, born in County General, dropped out of high school junior year. 3 DUIs, 2 assault charges that were mysteriously dropped, 1 restraining order from an ex-girlfriend who left the state and never came back. Derek's face was turning purple, his hands scrabbling uselessly at Vincenzo's wrist. I know you work for Brennan Construction. I know your supervisor is Mike Brennan, who happens to owe me a rather substantial gambling debt. I know you live in apartment 4C at the Riverside Complex, which is owned by a subsidiary of my company. I know your truck payment is 3 months overdue, and your credit cards are maxed out. Vincenzo leaned closer, and I saw Derek's eyes go wide with genuine fear. I know everything about you, Derek, and here's what you're going to know about me. I don't make empty threats. I make promises. And I promise you, on everything I own, everything I control, if you ever come near Lily again, they will never find your body. He released Derek, who collapsed to the floor, gasping and coughing. Vincenzo smoothed down his jacket, not even breathing hard. Get out. You have 60 seconds before I change my mind about letting you walk away. Derek scrambled to his feet, shooting me a look of pure hatred mixed with humiliation. You're gonna regret this, you stupid bitch. Both of you. One of Vincenzo's men, the one by the door, took a single step forward. Derek's words died in his throat. He ran. The door slammed behind him, and in the ringing silence that followed, I realized I was shaking. My legs gave out, and I sat down hard in the nearest booth. Vincenzo slid in across from me, his expression softening into something that might have been concern. "Breathe, Lily. It's over. He'll come back." The words tumbled out in a rush. "You don't know him. He'll wait until you're gone, and he won't." Vincenzo pulled out his phone again, typed something, then showed me the screen. It was a text message to someone named Marco. "Mitchell is flagged. 24/7 surveillance. He breathes near her. You call me immediately." The response came back in seconds. "Already on it, boss." 2 cars deployed. I stared at the exchange, my mind struggling to process the casual efficiency of it. You're going to have him followed?" "Among other things." Vincenzo pocketed the phone. "By tomorrow morning, Derek Mitchell will be unemployed. His truck will be repossessed. His landlord will begin eviction proceedings. Every door he tries to walk through in this city will close in his face." The cold calculation in his voice should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a hysterical bubble of relief rising in my chest. "Why?" I whispered. "You don't even know me." Something flickered across Vincenzo's face. Old pain, carefully controlled. "I knew someone like you once. Someone who smiled through the pain and counted money in the dark and thought she could survive just a little longer." His jaw tightened. "She didn't." The weight of those words settled between us, heavy with loss. "Your sister?" I asked quietly. His eyes met mine, and in them I saw confirmation and warning, and something else, something dark and possessive that made my breath catch. My sister. My fault for not seeing it sooner, for not being powerful enough to stop it. He leaned forward, his forearms resting on the table. "I'm powerful enough now, and I'm telling you, you don't have to run. You don't have to hide. You just have to let me protect you. I don't understand what you're asking for." My voice shook despite my best efforts to steady it. "Men don't do things for free. What's the price?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Smart woman." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "I'm asking you to trust me, to let me provide you with safety, resources, a chance to build something better than this." His gesture encompassed the diner, my life, everything. "In exchange, I want your time, your company, the opportunity to know you better. You want me to be your... what? Girlfriend? Mistress? I want you to be yourself without fear." His gray eyes held mine steadily. "Everything else we figure out as we go. No obligations beyond honesty. No expectations beyond giving this a chance." It was insane. Completely insane. I didn't know this man. Didn't know what he did, who he worked for, what kind of danger might come with accepting his protection. But I knew Derek, knew the taste of blood in my mouth and the sound of my own ribs cracking. Knew the cold math of survival that never quite added up. "What if I say no?" I asked. Vincenzo's expression didn't change. "Then I still make Derek Mitchell's life hell until he leaves the city. That part isn't negotiable. I don't allow men like him to operate in my territory. But you go back to your apartment, back to your plan, and we never see each other again." He tilted his head slightly, "though I think we both know you're not going to say no." The arrogance should have been off-putting. Instead, it was strangely reassuring, like he could see the decision I'd already made before I'd fully admitted it to myself. "I need to get my things from the apartment," I said finally. "There's money hidden, and some photographs I can't leave behind. Marco will accompany you. Derek won't be there. I'm having him detained by friends in the police department for the next few hours, drunk and disorderly, resisting arrest. By the time he's processed and released, you'll be somewhere he can't find you." The casual mention of controlling the police should have set off every alarm bell. Instead, I found myself numbly accepting it, as just another piece of this surreal reality. I need to tell Donna I'm quitting. Already handled. Vincenzo stood, offering his hand to help me up. I bought this building an hour ago. Donna now works for me. Your last paycheck will be delivered to wherever you're staying, along with a severance package for your years of service. I took his hand, feeling the calluses on his palm that seemed at odds with the expensive suit. You bought the building? I buy a lot of buildings. His smile was almost self-deprecating. It's what I do. Frank appeared from the kitchen, his face carefully neutral. You okay, Lily? I looked at him, this man who'd been kind to me, who'd pretended not to notice my bruises, who'd given me extra shifts when I needed them. I think so, I said honestly. Thank you, Frank, for everything. He nodded slowly, then looked at Vincenzo. You hurt her, and I don't care who you are or what you own. Understand? Vincenzo's expression softened with what might have been respect. Understood. You have my word. Lily will never be hurt again. The weight of that promise hung in the air as Vincenzo guided me toward the door. One of his men, the one who'd been standing guard, handed him a set of keys. Marco will take you to collect your belongings. I have a matter to attend to, but I'll meet you at the house in 2 hours. Vincenzo paused at the door, turning back to face me. One more thing, Lily. The money you've been saving. How much is there? $3,417, I answered automatically. Keep it. It's yours. You earned it. His smile held an edge of something fierce. But you won't need it anymore. Consider it a reminder. You survived. You were strong enough. And now you'll never have to count money in the dark again. Before I could respond, before I could process the sudden burning in my eyes, he was gone, disappearing into the black SUV that pulled away like a shadow. Marco, one of the men who'd accompanied Vincenzo, approached with car keys jingling in his hand. He was older than his boss, maybe late 40s, with the build of someone who'd seen combat and the eyes to match. Ready, Miss Lily? His voice was surprisingly gentle. I don't even know where we're going after this, I admitted. Where exactly does Vincenzo want me to stay? Marco's smile was knowing. The estate, you'll see. Trust me, it's not what you're expecting. As I followed him to a sleek black sedan, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. You made the right choice. I'll keep you safe. Vi looked back at the Bluebird diner, at the life I was leaving behind with nothing but the clothes on my back and the bruises I'd hidden for so long. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. The apartment I'd shared with Derek looked smaller than I remembered, shabbier. Or maybe I was just seeing it clearly for the first time, through eyes no longer clouded by the desperate need to make it work. Marco waited in the doorway, respectful of my space but alert to any danger. Take your time, Miss Lily. No rush. I moved through the rooms like a ghost visiting her own past. The envelope behind the ceiling tile, the photographs of my mother tucked in a shoebox under the bed, the only family I'd ever had, gone 5 years now. The necklace she'd given me before she died, cheap silver that meant everything. Nothing else mattered. Not the clothes Derek had criticized, not the books he'd mocked, not the sketches I'd hidden in a drawer, because he said art was a waste of time. That's all? Marco asked when I emerged with just a small backpack. That's all I need. He nodded like he understood. The boss thought you might want to travel light. There's clothing waiting for you at the estate. And anything else you need, you just say the word. The drive took us out of the city, through suburbs that gradually gave way to sprawling properties hidden behind stone walls and iron gates. Old money. Real money. The kind that didn't advertise itself with ostentatious displays, but with quiet, absolute control. The gates that Marco pulled up to were 12 feet tall, wrought iron twisted into intricate patterns that probably cost more than I'd made in my entire life. They swung open silently, revealing a driveway lined with ancient oak trees. And at the end of that driveway sat a house that redefined everything I thought I knew about wealth. It wasn't a mansion. It was an estate, stone and glass that somehow managed to look both modern and timeless, sprawling across manicured grounds that could have been transplanted from an Italian countryside. Gardens that were works of art, a fountain in the circular drive that featured sculptures I suspected were actually antique. "Welcome to Casa Marchesi," Marco said, pulling to a stop in front of the main entrance. The boss's primary residence. A woman in her 50s appeared on the steps, dark hair streaked with elegant gray, dressed in clothes that looked expensive but practical. Her smile was warm, but assessing. "Miss Lily, welcome. I'm Teresa, the house manager. Mr. Marchesi asked me to get you settled." I followed her inside, my shoes clicking on marble floors that probably came from quarries I'd never heard of. The entry hall alone was bigger than Derek's entire apartment. Art on the walls, real art, not prints, furniture that looked antique and priceless. "I know it's overwhelming," Teresa said kindly, catching my expression. "You'll get used to it. The house is large, but it's a home first. Mr. Marchesi insists on that." She led me through a maze of rooms, formal living spaces that looked barely used, a library that made my fingers itch to touch the leather-bound spines, a kitchen that could have served a restaurant. Finally, we climbed a sweeping staircase to the second floor. "This will be your suite." Teresa opened double doors to reveal a space that made my throat tight with disbelief. It wasn't just a bedroom. It was an entire apartment. Sitting area with plush furniture and more of those floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gardens. A bedroom with a king-sized bed that looked like sleeping on a cloud. A bathroom that was bigger than the one I'd shared with Derek, with a tub that could fit 3 people and a shower with jets I didn't even know the names for. And in the corner, an easel. Art supplies, expensive ones, professional grade, arranged with care on a table beside it. "Mr. Marchesi mentioned you used to draw," Teresa said softly. "He thought you might like to start again." I couldn't speak. Couldn't process the level of attention to detail, the thoughtfulness behind every choice. "The closet is stocked with clothing in your size," Teresa continued, opening a door to reveal what looked like a boutique. "If anything doesn't fit or isn't to your taste, just let me know. Dinner is at 7, but if you need anything before then, anything at all, just use the house phone." She pointed to an antique telephone on the nightstand. "Press 1 for my office." After she left, I stood in the center of the room, slowly turning in a circle. This morning I'd been counting crumpled bills in a bathroom with flickering lights. Now I was standing in a room that probably cost more per month to maintain than I'd made in a year. The absurdity of it hit me all at once. I sank onto the edge of the bed and started laughing. Not humor, but the kind of slightly hysterical laughter that happens when your brain can't quite process the whiplash of your life changing in a single afternoon. A knock at the door cut through my spiral. "Come in," I called, expecting Teresa. Instead, Vincenzo entered, and the air in the room seemed to shift. He'd changed from the suit into dark slacks and a fitted black shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms that suggested he didn't just sit behind a desk counting money. His hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. "I wanted to check on you," he said, staying near the door, giving me space. "Make sure everything is acceptable." Acceptable? I gestured around the room. "Vincenzo, this is insane. This is too much. It's a guest suite." He moved further into the room, his presence somehow making the large space feel intimate. "1 of 6. You're not putting me out." "That's not the point." I stood, needing to move, to do something with the energy coursing through me. "I don't understand why you're doing this. You don't know me. I could be anyone, a liar, a thief, someone looking to take advantage. You're not. He said it with such certainty that I stopped pacing. I know exactly who you are, Lily. How? The word came out sharper than intended. How could you possibly know? Vincenzo studied me for a long moment, then moved to the window, looking out over the grounds. Because I've been where you are, not the same circumstances, but the same feeling, trapped, counting days until some mythical freedom that might never come. Accepting pain as the price of survival. He turned back to face me, and in the afternoon light, I could see the scar through his eyebrow more clearly. Another on his jaw, faint, but there. This wasn't a man who'd lived an easy life, despite the wealth surrounding us. My father was difficult, he said carefully. He built an empire, and he expected his children to be perfect extensions of it. When we weren't, he reminded us, physically, when words weren't enough. My anger deflated, replaced by understanding. Your sister? My sister tried to escape by marrying someone our father approved of. Turned out her husband had learned well from my father's example. His jaw tightened. By the time I was old enough, strong enough to do something about it, she was gone. I'm sorry, I said quietly. Don't be sorry. Be safe. Be free. That's all I want. He moved closer, but still maintained that careful distance. I know what it's like to feel powerless, Lily, and I swore when I finally had power of my own, I'd use it to make sure people like my father, like my sister's husband, like your Derek, I'd make sure they couldn't hurt anyone ever again. The raw honesty in his voice made my chest tight. So I'm what? A project? A way to ease your guilt? No. The word was firm. You're a woman who deserves better than what life has given her. Someone who's strong enough to survive but shouldn't have to. Someone I'd like to get to know, if you'll let me. I searched his face for signs of deception, manipulation, the 1,000 subtle cues Derek had taught me to watch for. But all I saw was sincerity, and something else. Interest, attraction, want, carefully held in check. What if I'm not who you think I am? I asked. What if I'm broken? Too damaged to be worth this kind of investment? Vincenzo closed the distance between us in 3 strides, his hands coming up to frame my face with surprising gentleness. Then we'll figure it out together. But Lily, you're not broken. You're bent, maybe. Bruised. But not broken. I can see that in your eyes. His thumbs brushed across my cheekbones, and I realized I was crying. When had that started? I'm scared, I admitted in a whisper. I know. He leaned his forehead against mine, and the intimacy of the gesture took my breath away. But you don't have to be. Not anymore. Not here. We stood like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, existing in a pocket of stillness that felt stolen from time itself. When he finally pulled back, his smile was soft. Get some rest. Settle in. We'll have dinner. Talk properly. No pressure. No expectations. Just a meal between 2 people getting to know each other. Okay, I heard myself say. At the door, he paused. Lily, thank you for trusting me. I know that wasn't easy. After he left, I sank back onto the bed, my mind spinning. This morning I'd had a plan. Save money, run away, hope Derek didn't find me. Simple, desperate, probably doomed to failure. Now I was in a palace, under the protection of a man who'd looked at me like I mattered, who'd dismantled my abuser with casual efficiency, who'd somehow seen past all my carefully constructed walls to the person underneath. It should have felt like trading one cage for another. Instead, it felt like the first real breath I'd taken in years. I walked to the easel in the corner, running my fingers over the blank canvas. The art supplies were top quality. Charcoal, pastels, brushes, paints I'd only ever seen in stores I couldn't afford to enter. Without thinking, I picked up a piece of charcoal and started to draw. Lines appeared on the canvas. Harsh at first, angry, then softer, then something that might have been hope taking shape. By the time Teresa knocked to announce dinner, I had the beginnings of something I couldn't quite name yet. Something that looked like freedom might look, if freedom had a face. Dinner was served in what Teresa called the intimate dining room, which was still larger than any room I'd ever eaten in. A table that could seat 12 but was set for 2 at one end. Candles flickered in silver holders, casting warm light across linen and crystal. Vincenzo stood when I entered, and something in his expression made me aware of the dress I'd chosen from the closet. Deep emerald silk that Teresa had assured me was perfect for your coloring. I'd felt ridiculous putting it on, like playing dress-up in someone else's life. But the way Vincenzo looked at me now made the silk feel like armor. "You look beautiful," he said simply, pulling out my chair. "I feel like an imposter." The honesty slipped out before I could stop it. Then we're well matched. He took his seat across from me, and I noticed he'd changed again. Dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made his gray eyes even more striking. I feel like an imposter most days, like someone's going to figure out I'm still that kid hiding from his father's fists. The vulnerability in the admission eased something in my chest. "Is that true? Do you really still feel that way?" "Sometimes." He poured wine into my glass. Something red that probably cost more than my car. "Power doesn't erase the past, Lily. It just gives you better tools to manage it." A woman in chef's whites appeared with the first course, something that looked like art on a plate. She nodded to Vincenzo and disappeared as silently as she'd come. "I have to ask," I said, picking up my fork. "What exactly do you do, Vincenzo? How does someone my age own estates and construction companies and enough influence to buy buildings on a whim?" His smile was wry. The complicated answer, or the simple one? Both. Simple answer. I inherited my father's business empire when he died 5 years ago. I've expanded it significantly since then. He took a sip of wine. Complicated answer. My family has been in various businesses for 3 generations. Some legitimate, some operating in gray areas. I've spent the last 5 years working to legitimize everything while maintaining the connections that make us powerful. Gray areas, I repeated. "You mean illegal?" "I mean I don't ask certain questions about certain operations." His gaze held mine steadily. "I'm not going to lie to you, Lily. My family's wealth was built on things that weren't always legal or moral. My father was a hard man who made hard choices. But I'm not my father." "What does that mean?" "It means I don't deal in drugs. I don't traffic people. I don't loan money to desperate people at rates designed to destroy them." He leaned back in his chair. "But do I have connections to people who operate outside the law?" "Yes." "Do I use those connections when necessary?" "Yes." "Do I occasionally bend rules to get things done?" "Absolutely." The honesty was refreshing after years of Derek's gaslighting. At least Vincenzo wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. "And Derek?" I asked quietly. "What exactly are you doing to him?" "Nothing permanent. Nothing violent." Vincenzo's expression remained neutral. "I'm simply removing the supports that allowed him to function in this city. His job, his housing, his credit. By tomorrow, Derek Mitchell will have a choice. Leave voluntarily or face increasingly uncomfortable pressure to do so. Most men like him choose to leave." "And if he doesn't?" Something cold flickered in Vincenzo's eyes. "Then the pressure increases until he does. But it won't come to that. Derek is a coward. Cowards run when they realize they're outmatched." We ate in silence for a moment, the food exquisite but barely registering. My mind was too busy processing, calculating, trying to find the trap in all this generosity. "What do you want from me, Vincenzo?" I asked finally. "And please don't say just your company. Men don't do things like this for nothing." He set down his fork, giving me his full attention. "You're right. I do want something. He paused, choosing his words carefully. I want someone who sees me as a person, not a name or a bank account. Someone who isn't afraid to challenge me, to call me out when I'm wrong. Someone who understands survival, but hasn't let it make them cruel. You barely know me. How do you know I'm any of those things? Because of what you did today. He leaned forward. You could have kept your head down at the diner, could have served me coffee and watched me leave without saying a word. But when I asked if you wanted me to handle Derek, you said yes, even though you were terrified, even though you didn't know me. You chose to fight back instead of just surviving. That tells me everything I need to know. The way he saw me, as brave instead of desperate, as strong instead of broken, made something crack open in my chest. I'm not brave, I whispered. I'm just tired of being afraid. That's what bravery is, Lily. Being afraid and moving forward anyway. The main course arrived, something with lamb that melted on my tongue. We talked as we ate, the conversation flowing more easily than I'd expected. He asked about my mother, my childhood. I asked about his work, his home. We skirted around the heavier topics, testing the waters of this strange new dynamic. Tell me about the art, Vincenzo said over dessert. Some kind of chocolate mousse that should have been illegal. Teresa said you were working on something when she came to get you. I felt heat rise to my cheeks. It's nothing. Just sketching. Can I see it? It's not finished. I don't care if it's finished. I want to see how you see the world. The intensity of his interest was overwhelming. Derek had barely acknowledged my existence, let alone cared about my art. And here was this powerful, dangerous man asking to see my unfinished sketches like they mattered. Maybe later, I said, the words coming out softer than intended. I'll hold you to that. His smile was warm, genuine, and I felt an answering warmth bloom in my chest that had nothing to do with the wine. After dinner, Vincenzo gave me a proper tour of the house. The library with its thousands of books, the conservatory with tropical plants that thrived under a glass ceiling, the home gym, the pool, the wine cellar that could have been a museum. It's too much, I said, standing in a room dedicated entirely to displaying art he'd collected. How does one person live in all this space? Poorly, he admitted with a self-deprecating laugh. Most of these rooms I never use. The house came with the inheritance, my father's idea of what success looked like. I keep meaning to downsize, but it's lonely enough here as it is. A smaller place would just make the loneliness more obvious. The vulnerability in that confession made me brave. Is that why you brought me here? To fill up the empty space? Vincenzo turned to face me fully, and in his eyes I saw honesty and heat in equal measure. I brought you here because the alternative, watching you go back to that apartment, back to counting money and hoping Derek didn't kill you before you could escape, was unacceptable. Everything else? He moved closer. Everything else is just hope that maybe we can fill the empty spaces together. My breath caught as he reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my jaw, gentle where Derek's had always been rough. I should make something clear, he said quietly. I'm not a patient man by nature, Lily. I see what I want and I take it. But with you... His thumb brushed across my lower lip. With you, I'm learning patience. Because I don't just want your body in my bed. I want your trust, your truth, your presence without fear. And those things can't be taken. They have to be given freely. I was drowning in his proximity, in the clean scent of him, in the warmth of his hand against my skin. What if I can't give those things? What if I'm too broken? Then I'll wait until you can. He leaned down, his forehead touching mine in that gesture that was becoming familiar. I have all the time in the world, Lily, and I promise you, no pressure. No expectations beyond honesty. You set the pace. Always. The kiss, when it came, was nothing like I expected. Gentle. Questioning. His lips barely brushing mine as if asking permission. I made a sound in the back of my throat, surprise or need or both, and deepened the kiss myself, my hands fisting in his sweater. He responded immediately, one arm wrapping around my waist to pull me closer while his other hand cradled the back of my head. The kiss turned heated, consuming, and I felt 3 years of numbness burning away in the face of actual desire. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincenzo rested his forehead against mine again. Bedroom. Now. Or I'm going to take you against this priceless art collection, and Teresa will never forgive me. The words should have scared me. Instead, they sent heat pooling low in my belly. Your bedroom or mine? His smile was all male satisfaction. Mine. I want you in my bed, surrounded by my scent. I want to watch you come apart knowing you're completely safe. He took my hand and led me through the house, up a different staircase to the 3rd floor. His suite was even larger than mine. Masculine, dark woods and deep colors. But it felt lived in a way the rest of the house didn't. Books stacked on the nightstand. A jacket thrown over a chair. Signs of actual life. Lily. He turned to face me at the foot of his massive bed. If at any point you want to stop, we stop. No questions. No hurt feelings. You're in control here. Understand? I nodded, unable to form words around the lump in my throat. Derek had never asked permission, had never cared about my comfort or pleasure, had taken what he wanted and left me to piece myself back together after. This man, this dangerous, powerful man, was giving me control. I need to hear you say it, Vincenzo insisted gently. I understand, I managed, and I don't want to stop. His kiss was deeper this time, more possessive. Hands that had been gentle became more insistent, mapping the curves of my body through the silk dress. He walked me backward until my legs hit the bed, then lowered me down with a care that made my eyes burn. So beautiful, he murmured against my neck, his mouth tracing the line of my throat. So strong. Mine. The possessive word should have triggered every warning bell. Instead, it felt like a promise. Like safety wearing desire's face, when he peeled the dress from my body with reverent hands, when he mapped every scar and bruise with his lips while murmuring words in Italian I didn't understand but felt in my bones, when he finally joined our bodies with a gentleness that shattered me. I understood. This wasn't just sex. This was reclamation. Taking back what Derek had tried to destroy, proving to myself that my body could feel pleasure instead of pain. And as Vincenzo moved above me, inside me, his gray eyes never leaving mine, I felt something inside me start to heal. Not all at once. Not completely. But enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, I could be whole again. Afterward, tangled in sheets that cost more than my car and wrapped in arms that had proven they could be both brutal and gentle, I felt Vincenzo's lips against my temple. Stay, he whispered. Not just tonight. Stay with me, Lily. Let me keep you safe. Let me show you what life can be when you're not just surviving. And with my body still humming with pleasure, and my heart finally believing it deserved gentleness, I whispered back, yes. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I didn't recognize, and sheets that felt like liquid silk against my skin. For one disorienting moment, I couldn't remember where I was or how I'd gotten here. Then I felt the weight of Vincenzo's arm across my waist, his chest pressed against my back, and memory flooded in. The diner. Derek. This impossible house. The most intense night of my life. I shifted slightly, testing whether he was awake. His arm tightened, pulling me closer. Don't even think about running. His voice was rough with sleep, vibrating against my shoulder blade. I'm not done with you yet." The words should have sounded threatening. Instead, they sent warmth pooling through me. "I need to use the bathroom." "Fine, but come back." He released me reluctantly, and I slipped from the bed, suddenly aware that I was completely naked in the morning light. Vincenzo propped himself up on one elbow, unabashedly watching me with an appreciation that made me feel beautiful instead of exposed. "You're stunning." "I'm covered in bruises," I countered, wrapping myself in the sheet toga style. "You're a survivor who's still standing." "That's what stunning looks like." His expression softened. "The bruises will fade, Lily. I promise you that." In the bathroom, which was bigger than Derek's bedroom, I stared at myself in the mirror. My lips were swollen from kisses. My hair was a disaster. And yes, the bruises were still there, painting my ribs and hip in shades of purple and yellow. But something was different. My eyes. They looked alive, alert, like I'd been sleeping for years and had finally woken up. When I emerged, I found Vincenzo had pulled on sleep pants but remained shirtless, and the sight of him in morning light was almost too much. He wasn't bulky, but every muscle was defined, the body of someone who knew his way around a gym but didn't obsess. The scars I'd felt last night were more visible now. One across his ribs, another on his shoulder. A life lived with violence close at hand. "Shower with me," he said, holding out his hand. "Then I'll feed you." The shower was an experience. Multiple jets, steam that felt like heaven, and Vincenzo's hands washing my hair with a gentleness that made my throat tight. He was careful around my bruises, his jaw tightening every time his fingers grazed one. "I'm going to kill him," he said quietly, his hands pausing in my hair. "You said you wouldn't." "I know what I said, and I'll keep my word, but that doesn't mean I don't want to." His hands resumed their gentle massage. "Every time I see these marks on you, I want to find him and make him feel every bit of pain he inflicted." I turned in his arms, water streaming between us. Don't let him make you into something you're not." Vincenzo's eyes searched mine. "What do you think I am, Lily?" "I think you're a man who's capable of terrible things, but chooses not to be terrible. That's what matters." I touched his face, tracing the scar through his eyebrow. "How'd you get this?" "My father." I was 16 and stupid enough to talk back. His smile was bitter. He threw a glass ashtray, taught me to duck faster. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." It taught me what kind of man I didn't want to be. He kissed my forehead. "Come on. Teresa will have breakfast ready, and if we don't appear soon, she'll come looking." Breakfast was served on a terrace overlooking the gardens. Fresh fruit, pastries that melted in your mouth, coffee that tasted like it cost more per pound than I used to spend on groceries in a week. "What happens now?" I asked, watching Vincenzo scroll through his phone with a slight frown. Now Derek discovers his new reality. He showed me the screen, a series of text messages from someone named Marco. Mitchell showed up at the construction site. Brennan fired him on the spot. Bank called about his overdue truck payment. Repossession scheduled. Landlord served eviction notice. 30 days. 30 days? I felt a flutter of concern. That's not very long to find a new place. He won't need 30 days. By tonight, he'll realize there's no job in the city that will hire him, no landlord that will rent to him, no bank that will give him credit. He'll be gone by the end of the week. Vincenzo's expression was cold, calculating. Marco's already booked him a one-way bus ticket to Arizona. Generous of me, really. The casual destruction of a man's entire life should have bothered me more than it did, but all I felt was relief. What if he doesn't go? Then things get uncomfortable for him. Painfully uncomfortable. Vincenzo pocketed his phone and gave me his full attention. "But let's not talk about Derek. Let's talk about you. What do you want to do today?" The question caught me off guard. I I don't know. I hadn't thought that far ahead. Then let me make a suggestion. He leaned back in his chair, completely at ease in his own skin. You mentioned once that you used to draw. Teresa tells me you were working on something yesterday. I'd like to see it. Heat crept up my neck. It's really not. I'll make you a deal. You show me your art, and I'll tell you a secret. Something only 3 people in the world know about me. The offer was too intriguing to resist. What kind of secret? The kind that might make you see me differently. So it's a risk for both of us. His smile was challenging. What do you say? I found myself nodding. Okay, but don't say I didn't warn you about the art. We ended up in my suite, as if I could ever think of it that way, with him standing in front of the easel while I tried not to fidget nervously. The drawing was rough, incomplete, charcoal lines that formed a figure, a woman, her back to the viewer, standing in a doorway, light streaming through from the other side, the details of her face hidden, but her posture suggesting hesitation, decision. The moment before stepping through into something unknown. Vincenzo stood silent for so long I started to panic. Then he spoke, his voice rough. This is how you see yourself, standing at the threshold, afraid to move forward but knowing you can't go back. The accuracy of his interpretation stole my breath. Yes. He turned to face me, and there was something raw in his expression. You're through the door now, Lily. You know that, right? Whatever happens from here, you're not in that place anymore. I know. The words came out whisper soft. Your turn. Tell me your secret. Vincenzo moved to sit on the edge of my bed, his hands clasped between his knees. When I was 22, I killed my father. The world seemed to stop. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at him. It was ruled a heart attack, he continued, his voice flat, emotionless. And technically it was, but I triggered it. He was in one of his rages, beating my younger brother for some imagined slight. I'd finally grown bigger than him, stronger. I fought back, put him on the ground, and then I stood over him while he clutched his chest, and I watched him die. I could have called for help, could have given him his medication. Instead, I waited until he stopped breathing. Horror and understanding warred in my chest. Vincenzo, you asked what kind of man I am. He finally met my eyes. I'm the kind who can watch his father die and feel nothing but relief. The kind who understood that some people are so broken, so poisonous, that the world is better without them. Does that frighten you? I moved toward him slowly, my mind processing this revelation. This man who'd been so gentle with me, who'd washed my hair and promised me safety. He was also capable of letting his own father die. I should have been terrified, should have been running for the door. Instead, I found myself standing in front of him, my hands framing his face. No, it doesn't frighten me, because I understand. Something cracked in his expression. You do? Derek was escalating. Every fight was worse than the last. The bruises got bigger. The apologies got emptier. My voice shook. I used to fantasize about him just not waking up one morning. About him getting into a car accident or a fight at a bar that finally went too far. Does that make me a monster? No. Vincenzo's hands came up to cover mine. It makes you human. It makes you someone who was trying to survive against impossible odds. We stood like that, locked together. 2 broken people recognizing the cracks in each other, and somehow finding them beautiful instead of shameful. So what now? I asked. You know my darkest thoughts. I know your darkest action. Where does that leave us? It leaves us honest. He pulled me down onto his lap, his arms wrapping around me. No pretending, no hiding who we really are or what we're capable of. Just truth. however ugly. I buried my face in his neck, breathing in his scent. I'm scared of how much I'm starting to need this. Need you. It's too fast, too intense. I know. His hand stroked down my back in soothing circles. But sometimes the most important things happen fast. Sometimes you just know. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. I knew the moment I saw you in that diner, before I saw the bruise, before I knew anything about you. I just knew you were going to matter. That's crazy. Maybe. His smile was crooked, self-aware. But I've learned to trust my instincts. They've kept me alive this long. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Mr. Marchese? Teresa's voice. I'm sorry to disturb you, but there's a situation that requires your attention. Vincenzo's expression shifted, the vulnerable man disappearing behind the controlled businessman. I'll be right there. He stood, helping me to my feet. I need to deal with this. Business. But we'll talk more later, yes? Yes. He kissed me, brief but intense, then was gone, leaving me standing in the middle of my borrowed suite with a racing heart and the beginnings of something that felt dangerously like hope. I spent the rest of the morning exploring the grounds. The gardens were extensive. Rose arbors and stone pathways, and a greenhouse where someone was cultivating orchids. A pool house that looked like it had never been used. Tennis courts with nets that sagged slightly from neglect. All of this space, all of this beauty, and Vincenzo lived here alone. Until now. The thought sent a shiver through me that wasn't entirely comfortable. What was I doing here? Playing house with a man who'd admitted to watching his father die? Accepting protection from someone whose power came from places I was afraid to examine too closely? But then I thought about Derek. About the cold math of survival I'd been living with. About the bruises that had become so routine I'd stopped really seeing them in the mirror. Maybe this was trading one cage for another. But at least this cage had art supplies and a man who looked at me like I mattered. Miss Lily? Marco appeared at the edge of the garden, his expression apologetic. Sorry to interrupt. Mr. Marchese asked me to let you know he'll be tied up most of the day. Business complications. He wanted me to make sure you have everything you need. I'm fine, I assured him. What kind of complications? Marco's face became carefully neutral. Just business. Nothing to concern yourself with. The dismissal stung more than it should have. This was the reality of Vincenzo's world. Things I wasn't supposed to ask about. Places I wasn't allowed to follow. The golden cage. Beautiful, but restrictive. Marco, can I ask you something? Of course, miss. How long have you worked for Vincenzo? 15 years, since he was barely more than a kid trying to hold his father's empire together. Something like fondness crept into Marco's expression. He's a good man. Better than his father ever was. But still dangerous. Dangerous to people who threaten what's his. Marco met my eyes steadily. But never to those under his protection. He'd die before he'd let harm come to someone he cares about. The certainty in his voice was reassuring, but it also raised questions. Has he done this before? Brought women here? Given them sanctuary? Never. Marco's response was immediate. In all the years I've known him, Mr. Marchese has never brought a woman to Casa Marchese. You're the first. I didn't know how to process that information, so I simply nodded. Marco left me to my thoughts, and I wandered back inside, eventually finding my way to the library. The books were organized by some system I couldn't decipher, not alphabetical, not by genre. I was running my fingers along spines when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. My heart seized until I saw the message. It's V. Had to switch phones. Complications taking longer than expected. Make yourself at home. Order anything you want for dinner. I'll be back as soon as I can. I stared at the text, at the casual assumption that I'd just wait here like a good girl while he dealt with mysterious complications. Before I could talk myself out of it, I typed back. What kind of complications? Where are you? The response came almost immediately, the kind I can't discuss over text, and somewhere I don't want you involved with. Trust me on this. I thought we were doing honesty. A longer pause this time. Then, we are. Which is why I'm telling you honestly that there are parts of my work I can't share. Not because I don't trust you, but because some knowledge is dangerous. I'm protecting you. I wanted to argue, to demand complete transparency. But wasn't that what I'd been afraid of? Knowing too much about how Vincenzo operated, becoming complicit in things I couldn't reconcile with my conscience? Okay, be safe, always. And Lily, thank you for understanding. I pocketed the phone and tried to lose myself in a book. Something about Italian architecture that was beautiful, but couldn't hold my attention. My mind kept drifting to Vincenzo, to wherever he was, whatever he was doing. Dinner came and went. Teresa brought me something exquisite that I barely tasted, eating alone in that enormous dining room. By 9 o'clock, I was back in my suite, staring at the unfinished drawing and wondering if this was what my life would be now. Waiting, not knowing, trading concrete danger for abstract uncertainty. The sound of voices in the hallway pulled me from my thoughts. Vincenzo's voice, tight with frustration, and another man's voice, younger, heated. Can't just make these decisions without consulting the family, Vin. That's not how this works. I'm the head of this family, Luca. It works however I say it works. Dad wouldn't have... Dad's dead. Vincenzo's voice went cold. And I'm not Dad. Thank God. Silence. Then the other voice, quieter. Is it true? What Marco said? You brought a woman here? That's none of your concern. It's absolutely my concern if you're making decisions with your dick instead of your head. The younger man, Luca, raised his voice. You don't know anything about her. She could be working for the Rossis, for the feds, for... Enough! The single word cracked like a whip. Lily is under my protection. That makes her family business, which means you treat her with respect, or you don't come to this house. Are we clear? I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. Family business. Protection. The words that sounded romantic in Vincenzo's mouth took on different weight when someone else said them. A sharp knock made me jump. Lily, it's me. Can I come in? I opened the door to find Vincenzo looking exhausted, his shirt sleeves rolled up and his hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Behind him, a younger version of himself. Same dark hair, same sharp features, but with brown eyes instead of gray, and a harder edge to his mouth. This is my brother, Luca, Vincenzo said, his voice carefully neutral. Luca, this is Lily. Be nice or leave. Luca's eyes raked over me with clinical assessment, and I felt myself being weighed, measured, judged. So you're the waitress. Luca. Warning in Vincenzo's voice. I'm just stating facts. She worked at a diner, Derek Mitchell's girlfriend until yesterday. Now she's here, in our house, being offered family protection. Luca's smile didn't reach his eyes. Quite the upgrade. Get out, Vincenzo said quietly. Now. The brothers stared at each other for a long moment, some silent battle being waged. Finally, Luca's smile turned bitter. Fine. But don't say I didn't warn you when this blows up in your face. He left, and the tension in Vincenzo's shoulders remained. He stepped into my suite and closed the door, leaning against it with his eyes closed. I'm sorry about that. Luca's protective of the family business, of me. He doesn't deal well with change. He thinks I'm using you. I stated it as fact, not accusation. He thinks everyone's using everyone. Vincenzo opened his eyes. It's how our father taught us to see the world. I've tried to unlearn it. Luca hasn't. I moved closer, taking in the exhaustion in his face. What happened today? What were the complications? He studied me for a long moment, clearly debating how much to share. A business deal went south. People who owed me money decided they'd rather fight than pay. It's been handled. Handled how? Do you really want to know? I thought about it. About Luca's accusations and Marco's loyalty, and the empire Vincenzo had inherited from a man he'd watched die. No, I don't think I do. Something like relief crossed his face. Thank you for that, for understanding that some burdens shouldn't be shared. But I need you to understand something too, I said firmly. I can't just wait around in this beautiful house while you disappear for hours to deal with complications I'm not allowed to know about. I'll go crazy. I need purpose, something that's mine. Vincenzo straightened, his full attention on me. What do you want? I don't know yet, but I need to figure it out. The art is a start, but I can't just draw all day every day. I struggled to articulate it. I need to feel like I'm building something, not just being kept. He moved toward me, his hands coming up to frame my face. You're right. I'm sorry. I got so focused on protecting you that I forgot you need more than safety. His thumbs brushed across my cheekbones. Tell me what you need. Anything. It's yours. I want to finish my degree, the art degree I never completed. The words tumbled out before I could second-guess them. I was 3 classes short when my mom got sick. I want to finish it. Done. I'll have someone contact the university tomorrow. No. I pulled back slightly. I don't want you to buy it for me. I want to earn it. Sign up for classes normally. Do the work. Graduate like everyone else. Pride flickered in his expression. Okay. But let me at least pay the tuition. Consider it a gift. A loan, I countered. I'll pay you back. With what? You don't have a job. Then I'll get one. His jaw tightened. Lily, you don't need... I need to not be dependent on you for everything, I interrupted. I'm grateful for your protection, for this house, for everything you've done. But I can't just be your kept woman. I need to be my own person. Silence stretched between us, and I braced myself for anger, for the possessive alpha male routine Derek would have pulled at the first hint of independence. Instead, Vincenzo smiled, slowly, with genuine respect in his eyes. You're right, and you're stronger than I gave you credit for. He pulled me close, his arms wrapping around me. Okay. We'll figure it out together. School, work, if you want it, whatever you need to feel whole. But Lily? He pulled back to meet my eyes. Let me keep you safe while you do it. That's not negotiable. The compromise felt fair. More than fair. Okay. And one more thing. His expression turned serious. Luca's going to be a problem. He doesn't trust easily, and he has legitimate concerns about security. Can you be patient with him? Give him time to see what I see in you? What do you see in me? I asked quietly. Vincenzo's smile turned soft, almost vulnerable. Strength. Resilience. Someone who survived hell and came out still capable of kindness. His lips brushed my forehead. Someone worth fighting for. The words settled into my chest, warm and terrifying, and precious all at once. That night, I slept in Vincenzo's bed again, wrapped in his arms while his breathing evened out into sleep. But I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling and wondering what I'd gotten myself into. Because being with Vincenzo meant accepting his world, the violence lurking at the edges, the family dynamics I didn't understand, the power that came with consequences I couldn't yet imagine. But it also meant art supplies and tuition, and someone who looked at me like I was precious. The question was, which would I become? The woman who thrived in this new life, or the one who discovered too late that some cages were just prettier than others? The weeks that followed established a rhythm I hadn't known I was capable of. Mornings in the art studio, working on pieces that gradually became less about trauma and more about possibility. Afternoons at the university, where I'd enrolled in the 3 remaining classes I needed, art history, advanced studio practice, and senior thesis. Vincenzo had kept his word about letting me earn it myself. The tuition was paid. I didn't ask how much, but the work was mine. My professors had no idea who I was living with, no idea that I returned each evening to an estate instead of a dorm room. I was just another student. It felt like freedom. How was class? Vincenzo would ask each evening over dinner, genuinely interested in my thoughts on Renaissance techniques or contemporary installation art. Exhausting, wonderful, terrifying. The answers varied, but his attention never wavered. In return, I learned the rhythm of his days. Early meetings with men whose names I didn't ask about. Phone calls in Italian that I pretended not to hear. Long afternoons in his office dealing with the legitimate business empire. Real estate, construction, several restaurants. We existed in parallel worlds that intersected in the evenings. In his bed, in quiet conversations where we learned each other's histories and fears. "Tell me about your mother," he asked one night, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my bare shoulder. She was stronger than me, tougher. I stared at the ceiling, remembering. She cycled through bad relationships, but she always protected me from the worst of it. Worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. When she got cancer, my voice cracked. She fought for 3 years, refused to quit. I watched her waste away to nothing, and she still managed to smile. She sounds remarkable. She was. She died believing I'd do something important with my life. A bitter laugh escaped. Instead, I ended up with Derek, working at a diner, barely surviving. Vincenzo shifted, propping himself up to look down at me. "You survived. That's not barely. That's everything. Your mother would be proud." The certainty in his voice made my throat tight. "You can't know that." "Yes, I can. Because I see what she made." His hand cupped my face. "She raised someone who endured hell and didn't lose herself. That's not a failure, Lily. That's a victory." These moments of tenderness existed alongside a reality I was slowly becoming aware of. Vincenzo's world wasn't just business deals and real estate. There were nights he came home late, his knuckles bruised. Days when Marco would report something that made Vincenzo's expression go cold and calculating. I didn't ask. He didn't volunteer. We'd established a careful boundary. I could know about the legitimate business, but the shadow operations remained unspoken. It should have bothered me more. But after years with Derek, where every question was met with rage, the relief of not having to know everything was almost comforting, until the night I met the rest of the family. "It's just dinner," Vincenzo assured me as I stood in front of my closet, panic making my hands shake. "My mother, Luca, my cousin Antonio and his wife. Family. Family who thinks I'm a gold digger trying to trap you. Family who will learn to see what I see." He came up behind me, his hand settling on my shoulders. "And if they don't, they won't be welcome here anymore. You matter more than their approval." The dress I finally chose was simple, black, elegant, not trying too hard. My mother's necklace at my throat for courage. Vincenzo's mother was the first to arrive. Isabella Marchesi was in her late 50s, beautiful in that timeless way wealth and good genes conspired to create. Her dark eyes, so like her son's, swept over me with an assessment that felt surgical. "So you're Lily," and she took my hand, her grip firm. "Vincent has told me very little about you." "Vincent?" I glanced at Vincenzo, who looked mildly uncomfortable. "My mother refuses to use the Italian version. Says it makes me sound like a gangster." His smile was wry. "Well, you are..." Isabella stopped herself, her expression smoothing. "That is, your father was involved in certain businesses that had unsavory connections." "Mama, please." Vincenzo's voice carried a warning. I'm just being honest. Isabella turned back to me. You should know what you're getting into, dear. This family has a complicated history. I'm aware, I said, finding my voice. Vincenzo has been honest with me about his father, about the business. I know it's not all real estate and restaurants. Isabella's eyebrows rose slightly. Has he? How refreshing. My husband's previous... She paused delicately. Companions were kept deliberately ignorant. It rarely ended well. Before I could process that revelation, previous companions, Luca arrived with Antonio and his wife Sofia. Dinner was an exercise in subtle warfare. Antonio seemed pleasant enough, talking about his work in the legitimate side of the business. Sofia was warm, asking me about school with genuine interest. But Luca watched me like a predator assessing prey, and Isabella's questions felt designed to expose my inadequacies. So you grew up where exactly? Isabella asked over the second course. East Side, near the industrial district. And your father? Never knew him. It was just me and my mom. I see. Isabella's tone suggested she saw quite a bit. And your mother worked where? Mama, enough. Vincenzo's voice cut across the table. Lily's background isn't on trial here. I'm simply getting to know the woman my son has brought into our home. Isabella's smile was sharp. Surely you can understand my curiosity. It's not every day Vincent falls so precipitously for someone. The word precipitously hung in the air like an accusation. It's okay, I said quietly, touching Vincenzo's arm. I don't mind. I met Isabella's gaze directly. My mother worked as a home health aide for 20 years. She died when I was 22, leaving me with medical debt and no family. I put myself through community college, worked every job I could find, and ended up in a relationship with a man who hurt me because I didn't think I deserved better. The table had gone silent. Then Vincenzo walked into my diner and offered me a choice: keep surviving or start living. I chose living. If that makes me a gold digger or an opportunist or whatever you think I am, I can't change your mind. But I'm here because your son makes me feel safe and seen and valued for the first time in my life. And I'm not apologizing for that. Isabella stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly, a genuine smile spread across her face. Good. You have a spine. Vincent needs someone who won't be pushed around by this family. The rest of dinner was warmer. Luca still watched me with suspicion, but he stopped with the pointed comments. Antonio told embarrassing stories about young Vincenzo that made him groan and me laugh. After everyone left, Vincenzo found me in the library, staring out at the gardens lit by landscape lighting. You were magnificent tonight, he said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. My mother is terrifying, and you stood your ground. I thought she hated me. She was testing you. She does that to everyone I bring into the family. He paused. Though admittedly, there haven't been many. I turned in his arms. Your mother mentioned previous companions. How many? Vincenzo's expression became guarded. A few. Nothing serious. Women who understood the arrangement. Companionship in exchange for benefits. It never lasted because they couldn't handle the reality of my life. What's different about me? You've already lived through hell. My darkness doesn't scare you because you've survived worse. His hands framed my face. And you want me, not just what I can give you. That's rare in my world. Maybe I want both, I admitted. The safety and the man providing it. Then you can have both. He kissed me, deep and possessive. But Lily, you need to understand. Being with me means accepting all of it. The family dinners where people judge you. The nights I can't tell you where I've been. The reality that I've hurt people and will probably have to again. I know. And I did. I'd been learning, watching, understanding the shape of his world even when he tried to shield me from it. Does it frighten you? I thought about Derek, about bruises and fear and counting money in the dark. Then I thought about art supplies and tuition and a man who'd dismantled my abuser's entire life to keep me safe. No. What frightens me is going back, being that powerless again. If accepting your darkness is the price of staying safe, staying whole, I'll pay it. Vincenzo's eyes darkened with something primal. Mine, he growled, kissing me again. And there in the library, surrounded by thousands of books and the ghost of the violence that had built this empire, I surrendered to the truth I'd been avoiding. I wasn't a prisoner here. I was a willing participant in something dangerous and complicated, and probably toxic by any reasonable standard, but I'd never felt more alive. The call came at 3 a.m, shattering sleep like glass. Vincenzo was out of bed before I fully registered consciousness, his voice clipped and dangerous as he barked orders into the phone in rapid Italian. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting up. He was already dressing, his movements sharp with urgency. "Luca's been taken. Ambushed outside a club downtown." My blood went cold. "Taken? By who?" "The Rossi family. They're trying to force my hand on a territory dispute." He grabbed his gun from the safe in his closet. I'd known it was there, but never seen him take it until now. "Stay here. Marco's outside your door. Don't leave the estate." "Vincenzo." "I mean it, Lily." He crossed to me, his kiss hard and fast. "I can't worry about you and get my brother back. Promise me you'll stay here." "I promise. Be careful. Always." Then he was gone, and I was left in the dark with my heart pounding and the distant sound of cars racing down the driveway. The hours that followed were torture. I paced my suite, then the library, then the gardens as dawn broke. Teresa brought coffee I couldn't drink. Marco stood watch with his hand resting on the weapon at his hip, his phone buzzing constantly with updates he wouldn't share. "Is he okay?" I finally asked. "Luca? Still alive. That's all I can tell you." By noon, I was ready to climb the walls. I'd tried to paint, to distract myself, but my hands shook too badly. All I could think about was Vincenzo walking into whatever danger waited, about violence exploding and him being caught in it. This was the reality I'd accepted. This was what his world actually meant. The gate alert chimed around 2 o'clock. Marco tensed, his hand moving to his weapon, then relaxed as he checked his phone. "They're back." I ran. Didn't care about dignity or keeping distance or any of the careful boundaries I'd established. Just ran for the front entrance and burst through the doors as 2 black SUVs pulled up. Vincenzo emerged from the first vehicle, blood on his shirt, and a darkness in his eyes that made him look like a stranger. Behind him, Luca half stumbled out, supported by Antonio. His face was a mess of bruises, his shirt torn and bloody. But they were alive. "Inside now," Vincenzo ordered, and suddenly the entry was full of men with weapons, all moving with practiced precision. Someone guided Luca toward the sitting room. Someone else was on the phone, speaking urgently in Italian, and Vincenzo was striding toward me, his expression shifting from cold calculation to something raw as he registered my presence. "You shouldn't be here," he said, but his arms came up to catch me as I launched myself at him. "Are you hurt?" I pulled back, searching his face, his chest, looking for wounds. Not my blood. He caught my hands. "I'm fine. But Lily, you need to go upstairs. This isn't... Don't tell me to leave." I gripped his shirt. "Don't send me away like I can't handle this." Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise. Maybe respect. "This is going to get worse before it gets better. The Rossis took my brother. I took one of theirs. Now there will be negotiations, threats, possibly more violence. Are you sure you want to be part of that?" "I don't want to be part of it, but I need to be here for you." That's what this is, right? Being together means not running when things get hard. Vincenzo pulled me against him, his lips finding my forehead. You're stronger than you know. A doctor arrived to tend to Luca, who was conscious but clearly in pain. Broken ribs, the doctor reported. Possible concussion. Extensive bruising. They'd beaten him but hadn't done permanent damage. A message, not an execution. I sat with Sophia in the kitchen, while the men held their meeting behind closed doors in Vincenzo's office. Raised voices penetrated the heavy wood, speaking in Italian too rapid for me to follow. This is normal? I asked Sophia. Territory disputes that lead to kidnapping? She sighed, pouring tea with steady hands that suggested she'd been through this before. Unfortunately, yes. The families have been at this for decades. When my father-in-law was alive, it was worse. Open warfare sometimes. Vincent has been trying to establish more civilized rules, but some families still operate the old way. How do you live with it? The violence, the danger? Sophia's smile was sad. You learn to separate the man from the business. Antonio is gentle with me, with our children. What he does outside our home. She shrugged. That's the price we pay for this life. Security, wealth, family. Everything has a cost. The office door opened, and Vincenzo emerged looking exhausted. Lily, can you come here? I followed him into the office, where Luca sat slumped in a chair, holding an ice pack to his face. Marco and Antonio stood by the windows, their expressions grim. I need to ask you something, Vincenzo said without preamble. And I need complete honesty. Dread pooled in my stomach. Okay. The Rossis knew exactly where to find Luca tonight. Knew his schedule, his security detail, which entrance he'd use. Vincenzo's jaw was tight. That kind of intelligence doesn't happen by accident. Someone talked. I realized what he was implying a second before Luca said it aloud. She's the newest addition to the family. She has the most to gain by selling information to our enemies. My breath caught. You think I told them where Luca would be? Did you? Vincenzo's expression was unreadable, and that hurt more than Luca's accusation. No. I didn't even know Luca was going out tonight. I didn't know anything about... I stopped, fury replacing hurt. Is that what this is? You bring me into your home, into your bed, and the first time something goes wrong, I'm the suspect? I have to ask, Vincenzo said, but there was something in his eyes. Regret, maybe. You understand that, right? I have to eliminate every possibility. Then eliminate me. Right now. Ask me whatever you need to ask. Vincenzo studied me for a long moment. Do you have any contact with Derek? No. Your people are watching him, remember? He's in Arizona. He came back. Luca's voice was thick with pain and accusation. Showed up at a bar downtown 2 days ago, asking questions about you. About where you were living now. The floor seemed to tilt. What? Why didn't anyone tell me? Because we were handling it, Marco said. Or trying to. He disappeared before we could grab him. You think Derek is working with the Rossis? The idea was absurd. Derek barely graduated high school. He doesn't have the sophistication to... He doesn't, Vincenzo interrupted. But he has information they want. About you. About your connection to me. And if he's desperate enough, scared enough, he might have traded that information for protection. The room spun as implications cascaded. So, this is my fault. Luca got hurt because of me. We don't know that yet, Vincenzo said, but his expression suggested otherwise. I told you bringing her here was a mistake. Luca spat, then winced at the pain the emotion caused. She's a liability, Vin. A weakness they can exploit. Enough. Vincenzo's voice cracked like a whip. Lily isn't going anywhere, and until we have proof she's involved, she's innocent. That's how this works. That's not how this works, Luca countered. Not in our world. We can't afford blind spots. And she's the biggest blind spot you've ever had." The brothers stared at each other, tension crackling between them. "Maybe Luca's right," I said quietly. "Maybe I should leave. Go back to... No." Vincenzo's voice was absolute. "You're not leaving. You're not going back to Derek or to danger or to anything that doesn't keep you safe. I don't care what it costs. Even if it costs your brother's safety," I gestured at Luca. "Even if it costs your family's business." "Even then," he crossed to me, his hands framing my face. "I chose you, Lily." "That doesn't change because things got complicated." Luca made a sound of disgust and limped from the room. Antonio followed after throwing me a look I couldn't quite read. When we were alone, I let myself sag against Vincenzo. This is bad. It's manageable. But his arms tightened around me. "I'll find Derek. I'll deal with the Rossis, and I'll prove you had nothing to do with this. And if you can't prove it, if your family never trusts me, then they'll learn to live with my choice." He pulled back to meet my eyes. "I meant what I said. You matter more than their approval, more than the business, more than any of it." The words should have been romantic. Instead, they terrified me. Because in Vincenzo's world, choosing someone over family, over business, that had consequences. Consequences I was only beginning to understand. Derek was found 3 days later, holed up in a motel on the city's outskirts. Marco's men brought him directly to the estate, bound and terrified, and threw him into a room I hadn't known existed, a basement space that was clearly designed for interrogations. Vincenzo had asked if I wanted to be there. I'd said yes, despite the churning in my stomach, despite knowing what it meant to walk down those stairs and see the man who'd tormented me reduced to this. Derek looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown larger, standing next to Vincenzo in his territory with armed men at our backs. "Lily." Derek's voice cracked with either fear or relief. I couldn't tell which. "Thank God. Tell them this is a mistake. Tell them I didn't—" "Quiet." Vincenzo's voice was cold, controlled. "You speak when spoken to. Otherwise, I let Marco work on you, and Marco has very specific ideas about men who hit women." Marco's smile was terrifying. "I want to know everything," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. "Why did you come back? Who did you talk to?" Derek's eyes darted around the room, looking for escape that didn't exist. "I didn't mean... It wasn't supposed to go like this. They just wanted information, that's all. About him." He gestured weakly at Vincenzo. Where he lived, what his schedule was like, how many men he had. I thought I could make some money and then disappear for real. "Who?" Vincenzo demanded. "Give me names." "I don't know their names. Some Italian guys, younger one did most of the talking. They found me in Arizona, said they'd heard about what happened here. Offered me $10,000 for information about your girlfriend." My stomach dropped. "What did you tell them?" "Just that you were living with him. That he'd threatened me, forced me to leave. I didn't know they were going to..." He stopped, realizing he was admitting to something. "Going to what?" Vincenzo's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Kidnap my brother? Use that information to plan an ambush?" "I didn't know. I swear I just answered their questions. I needed the money." Vincenzo moved fast, one moment standing beside me, the next with his hand around Derek's throat, slamming him against the wall. "You needed money. So you sold information that put my family at risk, that put Lily at risk." "I'm sorry." Derek choked out. "I'm sorry, okay? I didn't think..." "You never think." Vincenzo released him with contempt. "That's your problem. You're a small, stupid man who hurts people and never considers consequences." He turned to Marco. "Get everything he knows about the Rossis. every detail, then make arrangements for his permanent departure. My blood went cold. What kind of arrangements? Vincenzo's expression when he looked at me was flat, emotionless, the kind that ensure he never tells anyone anything ever again. You're going to kill him. I stated it as fact. Yes. Derek made a sound of pure terror, but I kept my eyes on Vincenzo. Because he gave them information about me. Because he endangered my family. Because he's a liability. Because men like him don't change. They just find new people to hurt. Vincenzo's voice was cold, matter of fact. This isn't personal, Lily. It's business. It's absolutely personal. You're killing him because of me. I'm killing him because he's dangerous. The reasons don't matter. The result is the same. I looked at Derek. This man who'd terrorized me for 3 years, who'd broken my ribs and blackened my eyes and made me count money in the dark. Part of me wanted him dead. That feral, survival-focused part whispered that the world would be better without him. But another part, the part my mother had raised, recoiled at being the reason someone died. Let me talk to you, I said quietly. Alone. Vincenzo studied me, then nodded. We left Derek sobbing in that basement room and climbed back to the main floor, ending up in his office with the door closed. I know what you're going to say, Vincenzo began. Do you? Because I'm not even sure what I'm going to say. I paced, trying to organize my thoughts. Derek is a terrible person. He hurt me. He endangered your family. Part of me wants him dead, but I don't want to be the reason someone dies. I don't want that on my conscience, on my soul. I turned to face him. Can't you just send him away again? Somewhere farther this time? Somewhere he can't find his way back from? He'll tell people what he knows. About you, about me, about our security. He's a loose end that will eventually unravel. Vincenzo's expression was patient, but firm. I understand why this bothers you. But in my world, Lily, loose ends get people killed. I can't afford to be merciful when mercy costs lives. Then find another way. I moved closer, my hands on his chest. Please, Vincenzo. Not for him, for me. Don't make me responsible for his death. You're not responsible, I am. That's what you're not understanding. His hands covered mine. This is my decision, my action. You don't carry this weight. Yes, I do. Because I'm here. Because I chose to be with you knowing what that meant. Everything you do now reflects on me. On us. My voice cracked. I need you to be better than he was. Better than your father. Show me that power doesn't always mean violence. Vincenzo closed his eyes, a muscle working in his jaw. When he opened them, something had shifted. What would you have me do? Send him to Europe, Australia, somewhere so far away he can't come back even if he wanted to. Give him enough money to survive, but not enough to be comfortable. And make it clear, crystal clear, that if he ever speaks about you, about me, about any of this, then you'll find him, and mercy will be off the table. You're asking me to show weakness, to let someone who betrayed us walk away. I'm asking you to show strength, the strength it takes to choose mercy when everyone expects violence. I held his gaze. Your sister died because of violence. Your father ruled through fear. Is that the legacy you want? Is that the man you want to be? The words hit him like physical blows. I saw it in how his expression cracked, how his shoulders tensed. That's not fair, he said quietly. No, it's not. But it's true. I softened my voice. You told me once that you weren't your father. Prove it. Show me. Show yourself. That you can be powerful without being cruel. Silence stretched between us, heavy with the weight of the choice being made. Finally, Vincenzo pulled out his phone and made a call. Marco, Change of plans. Mitchell is being relocated internationally. I want him on a plane to Sydney within 24 hours. One-way ticket, $5,000 in cash. And make sure he understands. If he ever comes back, if he ever talks about us, there won't be a warning next time. He ended the call and looked at me. Are you happy? No, but I'm relieved. I wrapped my arms around him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This could backfire. Showing mercy often does in my world. Then we'll deal with it together. He held me tight, his face buried in my hair. You're changing me, Lily. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. It's both, just like everything else about us. Later that night, after Derek had been removed from the estate and shipped off to his new life of exile, Vincenzo and I lay tangled in his bed. He'd been quiet since dinner, processing, thinking. I spoke to Luca, he said finally, told him what we did with Derek. He thinks I'm getting soft. Thinks you're a liability making me weak. Maybe he's right. He's not. Vincenzo rolled to face me. You're not making me weak. You're making me think about consequences beyond immediate problems. That's not weakness. That's growth. Your family doesn't see it that way. My family has been operating the same way for 3 generations. Maybe it's time for a different approach. His hand traced patterns on my hip. My father ruled through fear. He was powerful, but everyone hated him, even his own children. I don't want that. What do you want? Power with purpose, control with conscience, and someone beside me who keeps me human. His gray eyes met mine. I want you, Lily. Not just in my bed, but in my life. Permanently. My heart stuttered. What are you saying? I'm saying that I love you. That this stopped being about protection weeks ago. That when I think about the future, you're in every version of it. He propped himself up on one elbow. I'm saying that I want to build something different with you. Not my father's empire. Something better. Something we create together. Tears burned in my eyes. Vincenzo. You don't have to answer now. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring this out. But I needed you to know where I stand. He kissed me gently. You saved me tonight, Lily. From becoming my father. From crossing a line I couldn't uncross. That's worth more than any show of force could ever be. I kissed him back, pouring everything I couldn't yet say into the gesture. Love felt too big, too terrifying to admit. But it was there, growing in the spaces between my ribs where Derek's fists had once landed. This man, dangerous, powerful, capable of both tenderness and violence, had given me back myself, had shown me what protection felt like when it came without control, what power looked like when tempered with conscience. I'm falling in love with you too, I whispered against his lips. It terrifies me. But I'm doing it anyway. His smile was brilliant, transforming his face. Good. Be terrified together. That's how we'll know it's real. And as we lost ourselves in each other, as his hands mapped my body with reverent possession, and mine traced the scars of his past, I understood. This was my choice. Not survival, not desperation, just love, complicated and messy, and probably doomed by any reasonable standard. But entirely, completely mine. 6 months later, I stood in a gallery downtown, watching people examine my thesis exhibition. The collection was titled Thresholds, 12 pieces exploring doorways, transitions, the moments before change. The centerpiece was the drawing I'd started that first day at Casa Marchesi, now finished. The woman at the threshold had stepped through. Light surrounded her. And though her face was still turned away, her posture suggested peace instead of fear. It's extraordinary, the gallery owner said, appearing at my elbow. We've already had 3 serious inquiries about the collection. One buyer wants to purchase the entire series. Pride swelled in my chest. Not because of the potential sale, but because I'd finished something I'd started, had proven to myself that I was more than just a victim who'd gotten lucky. "What do you think?" I asked Vincenzo, who'd been silently watching from the corner. He moved closer, studying the centerpiece with an intensity that made my breath catch. "I think you're showing the world who you've always been. Someone brave enough to step through doors even when the other side is unknown." I had help. I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. "Someone pushed the door open for me. I just removed an obstacle. You did the walking." The exhibition was a success. By the end of the night, half the pieces had sold, and I'd been invited to show at 2 other galleries. My professors were impressed. My mother's old friends who'd come were proud. And Vincenzo stood beside me through all of it, his presence steady and proud, asking intelligent questions about technique and meaning that showed he'd actually paid attention when I talked about my work. Luca even showed up, his bruises long healed, but his wariness toward me only slightly diminished. "Not bad," he said, studying a piece, "for someone we thought was a liability." "Still not sure I'm not?" I asked, half joking, still deciding. But his smile took the edge off. "Though Vin's been different since you came around. Better, maybe. Jury's still out." Progress, in Luca's world. That night, Vincenzo took me to the roof of Casa Marchesi, a space I'd never been to, accessed by a hidden staircase from his office. The view was breathtaking, the entire city spread below us like a carpet of stars. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small box from his jacket. My heart jumped. "Vincenzo, it's not what you think. Not yet." He opened the box to reveal a key. Not like the house key he'd given me before, but older, ornate. "This is the key to a building downtown. 3 floors. The bottom floor is gallery space. The second floor is a studio. Top floor is living space, though I'm hoping you won't need that since you're staying with me." I stared at the key, at him, unable to form words. "I bought it last month," he continued. "Had it renovated to your specifications, or what I thought they'd be. It's yours, Lily. A space to create, to show your work, to build something that's entirely your own." He pressed the key into my palm. No strings, no expectations, just a gift from someone who believes in your talent. I don't know what to say. Say you'll use it. Say you'll keep creating. Say you'll build the life you deserve. He pulled me close. And say you'll keep letting me be part of it. I kissed him, pouring 6 months of gratitude and love and terrified hope into the gesture. When we broke apart, I was crying. "I love you," I said. Completely. Terrifyingly. Probably unhealthily by any reasonable standard. He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Same. All of it. Every messy, complicated bit. Your family still doesn't trust me. They're learning. Luca's softening. My mother actually called you formidable last week, which is high praise coming from her." "And the business? The complications that still pull you away sometimes?" Vincenzo's expression turned serious. "I won't lie and say it's all legitimate now. There are still gray areas, still connections to people and operations I can't fully separate from. But I'm working on it, slowly transitioning everything to legal channels. It'll take years, but I'm committed to it. Why? Because of me? Because of us. Because I want to build something that won't get either of us killed or imprisoned. Because you showed me there's more than one kind of power." He kissed my forehead. "And because I want our children to inherit something they can be proud of, not something they have to apologize for." "Children?" My voice went breathless. "Eventually, if you want them. If you want this. Me. The life we're building, all of it." His hands framed my face. "I know it's complicated. I know my world is dangerous. But I'm asking anyway. Will you stay? Not just in the house. Not just as my girlfriend, but as my partner. My future. I thought about the woman in my painting, standing at the threshold. I thought about bruises and bus tickets and counting money in the dark. About Derek in exile and my degree finally completed, and art supplies that never ran out. About a man who'd watched his father die and used that darkness to protect instead of destroy. About choosing mercy when vengeance would have been easier. About loving someone despite every reason not to. Yes, I said. To all of it. The complications and the danger and the family that still doesn't quite trust me. To building something better than what came before. To being terrified together and doing it anyway. Vincenzo's smile was brighter than the city lights below us. Then we're doing this, building a life, creating something new. Something better, I agreed. We stood on that rooftop for hours, making plans and promises. He told me about properties he was acquiring, legitimate businesses he was building. I told him about exhibitions I wanted to mount, artists I wanted to feature in the gallery. We talked about the future like it was something we could control, even though we both knew better. Knew that Derek could come back, that the Rossis or some other family could escalate, that violence lurked at the edges of Vincenzo's world no matter how hard he tried to civilize it. But we also knew that survival wasn't enough anymore. That safety without purpose was just a prettier cage. That love, messy, complicated, probably doomed, was worth fighting for. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and rose, Vincenzo pulled me close. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For walking through the door, for trusting me, for making me want to be better." His lips found mine. "For saving me from becoming my father." "You saved me first, then we're even." We weren't, of course. The debt between us was too tangled to calculate. Protection traded for presence, safety for surrender, love for the courage to accept it. But standing on that rooftop with the man who'd turned my life upside down, with the city waking below us and the future stretching unknown ahead, I understood something crucial. I hadn't traded one cage for another. I'd walked through a door into something vast and terrifying and full of possibility. And I was choosing every day, every moment to keep walking forward, into the light.